Good morning. So again, tinkering with RF900. Today I'm removing the rear wheel in order to get access to the shock. I'm going to attempt to remove the rear shock to clean it nicely and inspect it. And by the way, I'm going to install what's called aftermarket dog bones to improve the handling. So of course, get the rear in the air using the ABBA stand or whatever method you prefer. Then to remove the rear wheel, get this nut off here. It's going to sit there quite tight, so I'll use the breaker bar, and that is a 27mm socket. Okay, that comes off. And then you're going to have to remove your hugger if you have one. Of course, same on the other side, that bolt here. Sweet, and then the hugger comes off. Alright, so now we're going to have to remove the caliper to get those two bolts loose. Alright, now pull the caliper down. And now this is going to be a 19mm spanner. Okay, and now just knock on this spindle from the left side so it protrudes. Support the wheel and just pull the spindle. Came out. So now you can remove this bracket here. It just slides out. And just lower the wheel. Alright, so we're back on the left. You can now push the wheel slightly towards the front to get the chain off. And roll the wheel out. But be careful not to lose those spacers. Alright, so peeps, as you can see, the wheel is taken off. This is our rear shock area, and the shock will be mounted in 2 points. At the bottom you're going to have this bolt here with the nut on the right hand side, and this is a 14mm bolt nut. And then you're going to have a second point where it's mounted at the top, and can you see this there? Just there. And that's also a bolt on the left and the nut on the right, which is also 14mm. Now the problem that I've encountered is that when I was trying to get that 14mm nut off here, I actually minced it. I rounded it off a bit and I had trouble getting it off. Right, so have a look at this. This is my standard 14mm spanner, and when I use this unfortunately rounded off that nut there. So I bought myself what's called lock-on spanners. So if you look inside there, you can see it's got those lines cut in there, and what that does is it allows you to remove even bolts and nuts which are like 40% stripped. It really has a proper bite, and I use that tool on that nut today and it works a treat. Alright, and another little trick here. So if you have a bolt or a nut which is stripped, you can use that as well. This is called a valve grinding compound, and what you would do is you would just take a bit of it and you would put it on that head of your rounded bolt or nut. And what that's going to do is that's going to provide you extra like friction or grip. So then when your tool goes on it, it really grabs it tight. Okay, so removing that shock. So I'm going to put one of the spanners here to hold it, and then I'm going to use the ratchet spanner to turn the nut. I think I'll be able now to turn it just by hand. Okay, nut removed. Alright, so now I'm going to go ahead and remove that nut here at the bottom. Excellent. So the next one will be that 17mm nut just here. Sweet. I can now use just my fingers. Alright, we've got that one off too. The last one which is that one here, and that's again 17mm. As the other one is spinning, so we need to grab it with another 17mm spanner. There we go, I can now move it by hand. Sweet. So before we remove the shock, we also have to remove that rear panel, and this is because the shocker has a remote container here. And just before you pull it out, don't forget there's a little connector here on the right hand side that needs to be unplugged as well. This is our remote reservoir. So to remove this, all you have to do is to loosen up the screws here. You've got your clamps loose, and then just wiggle it out. And so let's remove the shock and the linkage. So I'm going to start with the bottom bolt here, and all I have to do now is just basically push it out, and it came out quite easily actually, which is great. Then the next one is the one underneath, so I'll just push it out and it comes out again fairly easily. It needs some motivation, but yeah, it came out excellent. Now this one here is quite problematic. It doesn't just want to come out, and when I turn it, it just spins in the same place, but you can drive it out using a socket extension and hammering on that end here. And I have it here. Okay, so now I'm going to remove the old dog bones. Here we have them. And finally, at last, I'm going to be able to remove the top bolt that holds the shock. Alright. So keep the shock from the bottom. So here it is, RF900 shocker removed. So now I'm going to give it a bit of a clean, and then we're going to reinstall it with the new aftermarket dog bones. While you're there, you can also remove this shock linkage, because it's got a set of bearings there, so you can inspect those. So to get it out, you're going to need a 14mm spanner to hold that bolt's head here on the left, and then an extension, and then for that hole you're going to put a ratchet with an extension. Alright, so I got it loose already, so all I need to do is to get that nut off, and I think it's loose enough to get it off by hand. And then you just push this bolt out from the other side. That's your linkage removed. Alright, so this is what I got out. As you can see, it's a bit dirty, so time to clean it now. Alright, so I gave it a bit of a clean, and now you can just push out those spacer tubes from inside. And then you'd inspect and then you can inspect the needle bearings inside. You see, there's those needle bearings in there, and just have a look if the needles are all there, if you can see any damage, and then you're gonna have to re-grease it all. And obviously I'm gonna use a lot of it. Okay, I'm gonna go in from both sides, and what you want to do is you try to move those bearings so that grease gets inside. Okay peeps, so as you can see I've got plenty of that stuff in there, and I moved all those bearings a couple of times to make sure that the grease gets in the needles. Okay, some grease will come out from the other side, but that's okay. Just wipe it all off. So this is the way it's going to go in. Okay, bolt goes through. The securing nut goes from the other side, obviously. That'll do for now. Alright. I bought myself aftermarket dog bones, and those are a bit shorter, as you can see. Not a lot, but a bit shorter. And what they will do, they will transform the handling of your motorcycle, as the manufacturer says. So this will lift the rear by about 2 centimeters, and it will give you a bit quicker steering, so the bike will handle a bit better. So grab your first dog bone, and that's gonna go in the middle of your linkage, which is that one here. So put it through. The bolt goes through. Kind of difficult to get it in, but it will fit. Okay, that went in. And now you need your second bolt through the top here. Right, as you can see, the bolt came out from the other side. Right, I've just realized that I've put the bottom one in incorrectly, because the bolt has to go from this side here. Will now come out from the other side. Excellent. And I've got the securing nut on it here. Alright, so dropping this shock, and by the way, look at this, it's lovely, nice and clean everywhere. You're going to be dropping it from the top here. So this is the fuse box, just for orientation. You're going to drop it through here, and at some point it's going to get stuck. So what you've got to do, you just have to keep turning it, and then it's going to keep dropping down. Okay, so as I said, like, turn it a bit. And then it's going to go lower and lower. There we go. Okay. You're going to have to lift the swing arm just a bit, so that will help you aligning those holes from the shock with those holes from the linkage. There we go. The last one to torque up, let's not forget about this, is that little bolt here. It's going to have 14mm bolts head, and then on the other side, as you can see, I've got my wrench here, because that's the only way you can actually get there, you see, because you wouldn't be able to put your spanner in there. So then just torque this up to 85 Newton meters. So this is my torque wrench set up to 85 Newton meters. That's 85. Now the other one. That's 85 as well. Alright, the next one. That's 85, excellent. So very unfortunately I was unable to squeeze my torque wrench here to tighten this little nut to 50 Newton meters. I would have to remove my exhaust, and I'm not down for that. Therefore, I'm just gonna go by feel. Burp, burp. Alright, so let's have a look what we've got. We've got the new dog bones, jacking up the bike by 20mm, or 25 actually, I can't remember exactly. Nice clean bolts, nice clean linkage with lubed bearings, and very nice and clean shock. One more thing I've noticed in the service manual, it says that this bolt cannot touch the frame, I don't know what's that all about, but if that's what they're saying, let's listen to what they say. So I'm going to loosen it up a bit. And then I'm going to turn the reservoir a bit so it sticks out from the frame so I can put my finger in there. Alright, so now install this rubber here. And then you see this rubber goes from the other side, from the battery side, and then you've got those two little tits here. So just pull them, it's going to go for those holes, and it's nicely secure. Peeps, so let's get this tire in. Of course, don't forget about this bracket. It just simply slides in here. Don't lose those little spacers. You've got one on the left, one on the right. You can now put the chain back on the sprocket. Put your spindle in to get it somewhat aligned, and then lift the tire. Put the spindle in. Align it at the back, goes through, tires on. Alright fellas, so it's pretty much done now. All you have to do is basically adjust the tension of your chain. So what you're aiming for is about 3 centimeters, I don't know, 25, 35 millimeters. And just one little tip, remember that when you torque this down to 100 Newton meters, this will actually put some additional tension on that chain. So if it feels a bit looser than 30 millimeters, that's okay, because once you've torqued this up, this will make this chain a bit more tense. All right, let's get it up to spec, 100 Newton meters. And it's job done. Thanks for watching, till next time.